Hey guys, it's Kristin from Printable Cuttable Creatables. Today I'm going to show you how to assemble the Santa Dome candy holder. He is put together with cardstock using a fillable ornament as his belly, and he's hugging his belly, which is full of candy. And then the thing I love about these is on the back there is a rotating wheel, so we can rotate the wheel to reveal an opening in the back, and this opening is where we would put in our candy and take out our candy. And then the fun thing about this is that after your candy's all gone, you can refill this guy again and use him next year, so all that hard work doesn't get wasted. So let's get started putting him together. So I've got all my pieces cut out here, and I'm going to start by assembling the front. So these are all my front pieces, so I'm going to go ahead and set the back piece and the wheel pieces over to the side for now. And we're just going to work with these front pieces. So the first thing that I'm going to do is attach Santa's feet and the trim of his coat onto this big red piece here. So I'm going to grab my glue, apply glue to the back of this, got my glue on there, and I'm just going to go ahead and align that up on the edge of his coat. That's right where we want it. Okay, and next I'm going to do his boots. So these are his arms, and these are going to basically hug the ornament once we put the dome through this hole here. But first I'm going to glue on his little gloves and then the trim of his sleeves. I'm going to go ahead and glue those on first. So now I've got this piece all put together. Now I can put it on here, but like I said, he's to kind of hug the ornament as we put it through the center opening. So I'm only going to put glue along this middle piece and then a little bit on the sides, but I want to make sure that I don't put glue on his actual hands. So I think that should do it, and I'm just going to line that up with this top opening here, and I'll use his elbows here as a guide. Again, we're making sure that his hands are still free, they're not glued down. So now I can put on his beard piece, and there's his hat trim is attached to this piece, and you might have noticed there's this extra hat trim piece, and then there's two pom-pom pieces as well. These are the pom-poms that go on the end of his hat. I like to have these extra pieces and then attach them with foam tape, and that gives it some extra dimension. So first I'm going to go ahead and glue this beard piece on here, and then I'll add the pom-pom, and then I'll show you how I like to attach the other pieces with some foam tape. Oops. Then I'll do the first pom-pom with glue. Before I do the next layer, I'm actually going to do his eyes first. So let me go ahead and glue his eyes first, and that's where I like to use the tweezers just to pick up these little tiny pieces and put them where they need to be. Get his eyes on there correctly. And then I'm going to actually put this guy, I'm going to put him on here, and then I'll go ahead and attach the mustache and the other pieces. So let me do that. Again, we want to be careful. We're not putting glue on these hands, so we're just going to put glue on this bottom red shape here. Okay, so we've got him covered in glue on the back, again, not on his hands. And then we're just going to go ahead and align this with the piece in the back. Okay, and now we can add these pieces with our foam tape. So let me go ahead and put some foam tape on. Foam dots will work. Any kind of foam adhesive that you have will work for this part. So I've got foam tape on the mustache, and I'm going to go ahead and apply that here. So already we can see the kind of dimension that the foam tape gives us. I love how that mustache just pops out and gives it the extra dimension. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing with the hat trim. All right, so I've got my foam tape on the back of this hat trim, and I'm going to line that up. And finally, I'll do the extra layer of the pom-pom. So here's my foam. I'm going to attach this guy. Now you can kind of get an idea of how it looks with the foam tape, which I personally love that. So now we can move on. Let's not forget his eyebrows. And these, you can use foam tape for these, but I just put them on with glue. And then last but not least, we are going to put the belt buckle to the belt. I cut this out of some gold foil cardstock. You can use glitter cardstock. You can just use a yellow cardstock, whatever you have or whatever you prefer. Okay, so now we have Santa's belt, which is going to go on the ornament. So now we can go ahead and attach the belt to the ornament, and we're just going to glue it down right over the center. And I'm going to just place it right over the center of the ornament. Smooth down the sides. And now it's time to put the dome ornament in here. But first I'm going to apply glue all the way around the edge of this ornament here. And I'm going to just use the same glue here. I've tried this before and it actually has a really good hold. If you are using a different glue and it's not holding for you, then you can use a hot glue gun for this part. So I've got the edges of the ornament covered in glue, and I'm just going to take a piece of scrap paper and put this down, and then very carefully I'm going to just place this right over the top. Push the edges down, make sure it gets all the way on. Take it off, I don't want to glue it to the paper. Okay, so just make sure that it lines up with the edges of the paper, and then I'm just going to set this aside so it can have a chance to dry really well before we move on. Okay, so while we're waiting for the dome and the Santa to dry, we're going to go ahead and put together our rotating wheel pieces. So the file is going to come with 2 wheel options. You're only going to cut one of these wheels. If you're using a brad, you're going to cut the wheel with the small hole in the center. If you're using the paper disc as your fastener, then you're going to cut the wheel with the larger hole in the center. So I'm going to show both ways to do this. The first way I'm going to show is with the brads. So if you're using the brads, I cut 2 discs out because I wanted to see if having the extra spacer, if I put one in the front and one in the back of the wheel, if that might help the wheel just kind of turn a little smoother. So in this case, I'm going to put one in the front, one in the back. Like I said, if you just do one in the back, that's also fine. So I'm just going to line up the 2 holes and push the brad through. And then I'm going to place the second disc on the other side, and then I'm going to line those up with the hole on the back piece. Fold down the flaps on the back side, and over here is a little cutout in between his feet that will help us rotate this wheel. So that's using the brad method. If you're using the paper disc as your fastener, like I said, you're going to use this wheel with the larger hole in the center. And what you're going to do is there are actually little slits cut into the disc. So I like to put my fingernail right where the slits end and then gently fold up one end, then flip it around and do the same on the opposite end. Put my fingernail there and just carefully fold that up so that you have the 2 opposite ends folded up, and then the other 2 ends are going to stay flat. So now what I'm going to do is apply glue to the back of this. So I've got glue only on the flat pieces. The folded pieces are going to stay folded, and I'm actually holding on to them. And I'm going to line up the center hole in this disc with the center hole on the back piece. So I've got this glued down in place. And again, we're going to make sure that these flaps stay folded up. Then you can take your wheel and you can just place, if you pinch the flaps a little bit, should just slide right into that hole. And then once you've got them through, you can push them down flat. So that essentially the paper disc acts as a fastener, and it accomplishes the same thing as the brad does. So if you don't have brads on hand, you can just cut a paper disc and use that as your fastener. So that is the back. So now our dome is pretty well dried. I like to wiggle this and see how it's doing. So the dome is pretty well dried. It still has a little more to go, but I think it's ready enough that I can glue it down. So I'm going to go ahead and apply glue to the outer edges of this, and I'm going to be very careful not to get glue on the wheel. So I'm going to go around the edges of the wheel because we want our wheel to be able to spin freely. So we've got the glue on here. Again, I was very careful not to get glue on the wheel part, and now I'm going to take the top part and just line it up on there. Press everything down, make sure everything gets to grab on and gets a good hold. Okay, so we want to make sure that the wheel can spin. We can put candy in here, and then we can close that up. If you even wanted to make an ornament out of this, you could punch a hole through these top layers, or you could insert a ribbon right in between the layers while you're assembling the pieces. You can stick a loop of ribbon in there, and then he could hang from a tree. And that's it. Our Santa Dome candy holder is complete, ready to fill with treats and give to someone special.